In this episode of Hacks and Hobbies, I got to speak with Kevin Roberts, author, trainer, expert in ADHD, pioneer in treatment of cyber addiction, and the author for the book Schindler's Gift: How One Man Harnessed ADHD to Change the World. The book came out on October 16th, 2018. He's been interviewed on Screen Addiction by BBC Radio and ABC's 2020. He's been a keynote speaker at many conferences and a speaker all over the world talking about ADHD. Without further ado, have a listen to our conversation with Kevin J. Roberts.
Welcome to a new episode of Hacks and Hobbies with your host, Junaid Ahmed.
Kevin, it's so nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you as well. Sorry it took me so long here.
No apologies.
This is it's been quite a disruption. Luckily, a lot of my most important data was saved, so.
Oh, perfect. That's very important. Data, we collect data over time, and definitely important that, we have backups and we get back to them, because God knows all that time you spend in creating. So let me tell you a little bit about my podcast. It's Hacks and Hobbies, and I talk about my different hobbies. And I started earlier this year talking about my beekeeping, and I have cycling hobbies and many hobbies. So I just talk about these hobbies, and lately I've been talking to other hobbyists, other professionals, other entrepreneurs, and other professional folks like myself. And I figured, what better way to talk to them and get to know them than to bringing them on onto a podcast. That way, we have a place where we can go back to, like, oh, what did I talk to Kevin about? And it's a great way to memorialize. And I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and I was like, wow, this guy is awesome. ADHD, and I feel like that I might have ADHD or, of some sort. I've never been diagnosed, so it would be really, great to actually know it from the expert, and, get to know what it's all about.
Well, I'm happy to provide any insight that I can. That's what I do for a living. So
let's get right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You have a massive following on LinkedIn. I looked through some of the videos and some of the things that you've been doing for the past many, many years. So walk us through a little bit about, how you got into it.
Well, I got involved in ADHD because I found out in my mid-20s that I had ADHD. I was working at a school for gifted children, and I developed sort of a penchant for working with gifted children who had different learning issues. And I noticed that a lot of the children that were being sent to me in my role as a counselor were children that ended up having ADHD. And at that point in the mid-90s, I really didn't know much about it. But after 4 years, I decided to leave teaching.
Yeah.
Didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. And people started calling me, and they would say things like, we heard you turned this kid around and you helped this kid. Can you do that for my child? And so that began a career of ADHD coaching, working with young people that have this condition. It's, a lot of us are creative, a lot of us are imaginative, but with those skills, we have some challenges and some liabilities, whether it be organization, planning, time management, persistence, or simply handling the details of life.
Listening to what you just explained, that I'm like, wow, I have a lot of those issues myself. So going on your own, and then so you started going back and helping these additional people, or you just started going to schools and talking about it to get information, or helping others?
Well, I started helping school children, and then from there I moved into working with people in college, and now I have somebody in medical school, somebody who's working on a PhD. I have 2 firefighters.
Yeah.
So my mission is to help people that do suffer from ADHD overcome those challenges, along with finding their true talent, their mission. And so I've written a number of books on this topic.
Okay.
The theme of my books basically is, if ADHD people can configure their lives with the right set of supports and circumstances, they can be magically successful and do things that can change the world for the better.
Wow. No, that's absolutely amazing. So what are some of these books? Because I would definitely benefit from these books, because I believe I have some of these issues myself. Although, I bring myself to focus on a lot of things, a lot of the times that I'm working on. And probably one of the reasons why I have 100 hobbies.
Well, that would be consistent, with somebody who had ADHD. Doesn't mean you have ADHD.
Okay.
But one of the things about ADHD is that a lot of us get excited at the beginning of a new idea, at the beginning of a new project or adventure. And we often lack the persistence. And that's because of the way the brain is designed. I mean, to persist through something, you one of the very important things that must be going on in your brain is you must have a supply of dopamine that will stay in the synapses of your brain and won't be sort of vacuumed up real fast. You need it to stay there because that's a neurotransmitter that allows our nerve impulses to efficiently transmit. Well, in people with ADHD, we get the requisite amount of dopamine when something is new, when something is exciting, but when something becomes boring, routine, repetitive, mundane, old hat, our brains function suboptimally. So, a lot of people say, well, can't you just persist? Can't you just, force yourself?
Yeah.
Well, you can to some extent, but what you're working against is the way your brain is constructed. And without an understanding of the way your brain is constructed, a lot of people will struggle to overcome that challenge.
I mean, that totally makes sense, because the more knowledge you have about something that you're facing, the better you are equipped to handle with that situation. If you're ignoring troubles and just say, oh, you just need to pray, or you just need to, do this or that, instead of diagnosing the problem and finding the proper solutions, then absolutely, that totally makes sense.
So one of the examples that I use regularly, and now I just have a book brought out about it.
Yeah.
Oscar Schindler. And Oscar Schindler was a man who saved 1,200 Jewish people during the Holocaust.
Wow.
He failed. Steven Spielberg made a movie about him, Schindler's List. Oscar Schindler failed at just about everything he did before World War II, everything he did after. But during World War II, this magical alchemy worked in his life. And so what I've done with the book that I wrote is called Schindler's Gift, How One Man Harnessed ADHD to Change the World. And it's rooted in my belief, my overwhelming belief, one that I have extensively researched over a decade, that did have ADHD. He did have a lot of the challenges that ADHD people suffer with, including a mood issue. And yet during World War II, he had a combination of circumstances and support and a sense of mission that drove his purpose, that drove him to succeed.
I had no idea, about this. I mean, this is new. I mean, I never got to see the movie Schindler's List, mainly because around the time that it came out, I was in a different country. I mean, I grew up in a different country.
Did you grow up in Iran?
I actually grew up in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Boy, what a culture difference.
It is. It is. So,
but you want to know something interesting about Saudi Arabia?
Absolutely.
Saudi Arabia has a higher incidence of ADHD than most other countries. It's
wow.
In fact, I've been at conferences where I have been approached by Saudi folks who wanted me to come to Saudi Arabia and speak. I've never managed to make that happen, but I had the idea has been bandied about.
Yeah. No, so I grew up in Saudi from age 7 to 19, and then I came to the States. And so, it feels like it was a change of, culturally very different countries, right? Growing up, we didn't have cinema or theater, and I didn't know, I didn't know any different. So I was like, I guess that's the norm. But when I came here, then now I see the contrast difference. But it didn't affect me as much because even when I was here in the States, I was surrounded by a lot of family members, right? So I didn't have to, go it alone kind of thing. I mean, a lot of times you hear these immigrant stories and they had to start over because they either didn't have the support system or they didn't have the family structure to give them the support and mentorship and stuff. So that's something I didn't feel a lot of difference in that coming over here. But over time you see the differences. I'm like, okay, and I'm always looking for the bright side in things. What the grass is greener on the other side, or basically the good in everybody. So maybe I didn't notice it or didn't pay attention to that part of life growing up over here. But as I grow older, I wrote this article, like advice I would give to my 20-year-old self around the time when I came here. I was like, you gotta follow your passion. And now I look back at that and I think about it. I think about that and I say, if I had the proper mentors, the proper support system that would, be in line with what I wanted to do, it's never going to be the case, but maybe I would end up differently, but, I have no regrets whatsoever.
Well, so people ask me, well, Kevin, if you think that Oskar Schindler had ADHD, how on earth could he have done what he did? And it gets very much, Junaid, to what the point that you're making.
Yeah.
He had several factors. First of all, he found something that roused his brain, saving human lives.
That's a big one.
That's what turned him on. And he had the courage and the risk-taking, the underlying risk-taking nature that allowed him to feel comfortable in that setting of intensity and of horror. And he found his mission saving human lives. But he also had a number of other factors. He had support.
Oh, yeah.
He had some of the finest businessmen in Krakow who just happened to be Jewish slaves.
We've lost Kevin. I think he might have had some problem with his computer. He was telling me earlier.
So Oskar Schindler, to get back, we were talking about, he had that sense of mission.
Mm-hmm.
He had the underlying sort of impulsive and risk-taking nature, which is part and parcel of ADHD.
Risk-taking.
Yeah, without a person who enjoyed taking risks, he wouldn't have been able to save the people that he saved.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay.
To clarify, basically, during the Holocaust, the Nazis killed a lot of Jewish people, but they also used Jewish slave labor.
Oh, okay.
So Oskar Schindler had a factory in Krakow, Poland, and he employed Jewish people to work in his factory. They were slave laborers.
Got it.
But most factory owners didn't really care too much about their workers.
Yeah.
But he did. And so he treated his workers humanely. And when he started to realize that when the Jewish folks were being deported, that they were actually being sent to their deaths.
Oh, wow.
So this is when, in the summer of 1942, when he learned about this is when he began to increase his efforts to keep his workers safe. And eventually he bribed dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of Nazi officials to move his factory when they were, because the Germans were going to shut it down because the Soviets were getting too close to Poland, and instead of just letting his workers be shipped off to Auschwitz and murdered like so many millions of others, he at his personal expense and with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of German marks, he bribed Nazi officials to let him save his workers. And so 1,200 people were alive at the end of the war who would most assuredly have been murdered. But see, in order to do that, he risked his own life, because anybody saving Jews could have at the very least been sent to a concentration camp.
Yeah.
But he was a master of deception. He was a master manipulator. And these are skills that we often see in ADHDers, because if you're an ADHD person, Junaid, and you're in school and you get the finger pointed and you get yelled at, you learn, a lot of us, me included, we learn to lie. We learn to deflect. We learn to make up stories. Well, Oscar Schindler, that happened to him. But during World War II, these capacities honed in school became gifts that he used in the service of saving human lives.
That is just amazing. I mean, wow! I need to go see this movie.
Yeah, I would strongly recommend watching the movie. It is an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn the story of the psychological makeup of Oscar Schindler, you can go to Amazon.com and put in Schindler's Gift, and you can.
I'm already ahead of you.
Okay.
I've got it in my basket.
I'm going to tell you something. I've spent about 10 years doing the research for this book.
Wow.
I've been to Poland a dozen times.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to the Czech Republic several times.
Yeah.
And the book itself is not a dry history, but it's written in a very narrative style that I think is pretty easy to read.
Okay.
So it's a good way to learn the Schindler saga. And I certainly would recommend. The movie is being re-released on December 7th.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I certainly recommend going to see it in the theater, much more powerful.
No, absolutely. It totally makes a difference how you watch the movie. And oh man, this is really amazing. I mean, I was told about ADHD and I just never, paid attention. Like, maybe I need to take a look at that. But a lot of the things that you're mentioning, I mean, I think my son might have it, and he might have gotten it for me. I don't know. But I see a lot of things. I mean, he's getting yelled at by both of us, myself and my wife. And I see those deflections, I see those things happening. So,
well, and they happen automatically, Oscar Schindler.
Okay.
People who are sort of professionals in the field and, who regularly encounter ADHD.
Yeah.
They when I make this case to them, they'll often say, well, what do you know about his school years? Well,
sure.
Oscar Schindler hated school.
Mm-hmm.
He lied in school.
Yeah.
He was kicked out of school for cheating when he was 16. And that's something that a lot of ADHD people do. We often are really bored with and not engaged by the way that school is taught. And some of us will turn to cheating. Mm-hmm. And Oscar Schindler was called Schindler the Swindler because of these tendencies. And he also, because he was a risk taker, one who needed intensity to feel fully alive, he raced motorcycles. Okay. He was an automobile racer, and he did work for several years as a spy, because these are very intense, even adventurous pursuits, and that's what he needed to feel fully alive.
No, absolutely. That is so true. So do you think hobbies help with ADHD issues, or can they? I mean, because I'm a strong believer of having hobbies and, engaging your mind in different ways than you might have imagined. And so is this one way to deal with something like this, or?
Well, I have to have a hobby. And that's one of the reasons I messaged you and wanted to talk about your show, because I get bored, even like, I work with kids now and young adults and some adults, and, my work is very meaningful, and I help people every day.
Absolutely.
But I also get bored doing the same kinds of things. And so I have to have hobbies. And, we're talking about my book.
Yeah.
I started writing as a hobby.
Oh, wow. And this is Schindler's Gift?
Yeah, well, yeah, but that's not my first book, but my first book was a hobby. I just what the heck? I'll just, I'll start writing, and it turned into something else. So I think that some of us hunger and long for a deeper experience of life and deeper meaning.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think a hobby, finding something to through which to channel your passion, it is a really important thing for those of us who might, maybe we feel bored, in our life. Maybe we don't feel challenged.
Yeah.
I think a hobby is a way to turn that situation around, and I wholeheartedly support it. And by the way, when I filled out the form that you asked me to fill out to be on the show, you asked me what is one hobby I'd like to pursue, and I put play the piano. But the real truth is, I don't have the time to do it right now, but I'd love to be a beekeeper.
Oh my God! Beekeeping is so amazing, and it's mind calming because you're sitting there watching these bees come in and go out, and then you'll see there as soon as they land on the front board, you see them do a little dance, and then you'll see some other bees just hanging upside down, and they're walking like backwards up, basically telling other bees, "Hey, you'll go find pollen over here, or you'll go find nectar over here." So it's really amazing, and I got into it because my son has allergies, seasonal allergies, as well as food allergies, and we heard from one of the allergists that if you have local honey, it helps a lot with the seasonal allergies. So I was like, all right, that was my mission. Okay, I'm going to get to that point where I can be a beekeeper. So finally this year I pulled the trigger, and I took a class and I learned all about them, and eventually got the beehives and set up. So I'm hoping to harvest a lot of honey next year in spring. That's basically around the time where you harvest, honey. And bees basically, they have a 6-week lifespan. The worker bees, the queen bee might live a lot longer, but they're basically collecting honey so they can survive the winter.
Yeah, well, I've always found bees fascinating, and I'm one of those people that bees seem to be drawn to. If I'm outside with 5 people, I'm the one that the bees will go toward, and I just let them land on me. And the only time I've been stung in my life by a bee was when I got in my car and there had been a window open in the summer. There must have been a bee on my seat that I slammed into when I sat down.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, they don't sting me.
Nice. So just hang around you. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that accelerated into me becoming a beekeeper was this company out in Australia developing this thing called Flow Hive, and it helps with the extraction of honey so much easier because you don't need to. Yeah.
I've heard about this. Yes, I have heard about this.
Yeah, you just put your honey jar right under the spout, and honey just flows out.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. One of these days, when I have some more time, I mean, right now I'm busy with, writing, and then, doing stuff like what I, talking to you.
Yeah.
I do this a lot because I want to get the word out on my books, and that's almost a full-time job in and of itself.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but maybe when I'm in my retirement years, I'll keep some bees, and because I do love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first step to get to it is to contact your local beekeepers. I'm sure there's a local beekeeper club where you live.
There is actually. I'm in touch with one of the members just because he was a friend of mine already.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So and after I started keeping, I've been hearing from other folks around me, like my neighbor reached out to me. She's like, "Yeah, I totally want to keep bees as well." And some of the den leaders in the Cub Scouts that were in, they're like, "We absolutely want to be beekeepers as well. Where do we start? How do we get into it?" But I absolutely love talking to you. I mean, this ADHD and the books and the stories of Schindler. It's just amazing. I was thinking to myself, telling myself, the world is way bigger than we become comfortable in it. And it's necessary to reach out to people and reach out to, individuals that are doing work in areas that I had no idea about, right? And so this is amazing. Thank you so much for reaching out.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'd love to chat again.
Absolutely.
You need a guest at the last minute or something, don't hesitate to give me a call.
Perfect. I mean, and I just want to say, I really love your perspective on hobbies being helpers I jump through hobbies because, like you said, when you first get into something brand new, you have that those chemicals, this dopamine just rising up. You're in this higher state of understanding things, and you just basically dig right in, and I feel a lot of that. But with this podcasting hobby, I've been consistent because I get to talk to a lot of new people. So that the persistence plus hobby keeping, they all come together. So where can people reach you?
If people want to talk to me,
Yeah.
my website is www.kevinjroberts.net. Don't forget the J,
Okay.
Kevin J. Roberts, and it's not .com, it's .net.
Okay.
And people can contact me through my website. My direct email is kevin@kevinjroberts.net. Kevin@kevinjroberts.net.
Perfect. This was really awesome talking with you, and I'll definitely reach out and talk more with you because I enjoyed our conversation and learning more about ADHD. And one more thing that I wanted to touch upon was cyber addiction, and I see a lot of that in little kids when they want to be in front of those screens and those laptops or tablets and phones. And a lot of people I've seen, they'll just hand over their smartphone because they don't want their kid to, be screaming. And it all starts as a pacifier, right? And then it becomes much more than that.
Well, and one of the things that I am concerned about that relates to your focus on hobbies.
Yeah.
And my first two books were on cyber addiction, screen addiction, is that a lot of us, we screens and computers and our phones, these are very easy and convenient tools to pursue entertainment. But in the long run, they're ultimately not that fulfilling. And I'm not sure that they lead to expanding us as human beings.
Absolutely.
And so I strongly encourage families to pursue common interests and activities that do not involve the screen, because I think it helps to lead to a healthier and more balanced life. And I think that when we have families sitting at a dinner table, people using their phones, it distracts from building connection, maintaining connection, wiring our brains to be interacting and interconnected to other people. So, my first book on that subject was called Cyber Junkie: Escape the Gaming and Internet Trap.
Okay.
And then my second one is called Get Off That Game Now: The Essential Family Guide to Healthy Screen Behavior. And both of those are geared towards helping people achieve balance. If you're going to have a hobby nowadays, gosh darn it, try to do it away from the screen.
Yes.
Try to have it be something that gets you involved, interacting with other people.
Absolutely.
Or in the case of beekeeping, interacting with the natural world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you're out there, hours on end, and you get a phone call like, "Are you done with the beekeeping? Can you come in and help me?" Yeah, absolutely.
So where can my listeners pick up this podcast?
Absolutely. So the podcast is available on all of the platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify. And I'm working on getting it on iHeartRadio as well. And it's called hacksandhobbies.com, or you can look up Hacks and Hobbies on Facebook, as well as Apple Podcast and Google. So it's available on most platforms.
All right. Well, sounds great, Junaid. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I look forward to connecting again in the future.
Absolutely. It was great talking with you, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.